Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Post-Gazette's College Football Show, hosted by two of your three college sports writers here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter's too cool for this show, apparently. He just does every other piece of programming we have on this YouTube channel. They saved this for us, though, Andrew. Noah Hiles, Andrew Dustin here once again. And Andrew, I had the game last week. Now I'm on the bye week, even though I'm still, covering other stuff. But you have the game. And I'm not just talking about the game between you and I. I'm talking about, well, with the exception of Alabama, Tennessee, maybe. You have one of the biggest games of the season so far on Saturday. Penn State, Michigan. Before we even dive in, I mean, what's the feel around Happy Valley right now? It's got to be, a special week, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, thankfully for me, I got the chance to live in town here, so I'm still able to get out and about and get a feel for the community. And you can tell that this is the most excited people have been for a game this year, and frankly, in a long time. I mean, you have to go back really to a time pretty similar to this last year when Penn State was 5-0 and they were heading out on the road to play an undefeated Iowa team. That would be the similar vibe that I'm feeling right now around campus, student life, downtown, all those sorts of deals. People recognize the magnitude of this game, and especially I think a point that's big is that with James Franklin inking that new contract during the middle of last season, kind of that this is a first shot of under the new deal. Like, is this the beginning of the future for James, or is this a step back into what we've always seen from Penn State, where you beat the teams you're supposed to beat and the teams that you're quote unquote not supposed to beat, you come up short against. So I think it's a really exciting time around here, and we'll see if it's more of the same and having a great undefeated start and kind of going down after that. We'll kind of have to wait and see, but it's an exciting time around here for sure. You can tell a lot of people are into it.
Andrew, reading through your coverage, you had some interesting numbers in a story you wrote recently. I think it was either yesterday or the day before. You brought up two names, two very important names to this game and the Penn State program. Number one being Sean Clifford, the starting quarterback. He's 1-4 in matchups where his team was ranked playing a ranked opponent, and in two of those 5 games, he didn't even finish. The one that obviously comes to mind was the Iowa game, like what you brought up, where they go into that game, they were in complete control in that game, he gets hurt, and not only that game falls apart, but really the season falls apart after that one. The other guy that you brought up was James Franklin. He is 10-21 against ranked teams in the AP poll through his tenure with the Nittany Lions. And that stat right there is jarring. Because, I mean, for all intents and purposes, James Franklin's had a successful career, I think, at Penn State. He's getting them consistently to notable bowl games. They're always, in the mix for a Big Ten and on the competitive division of the Big Ten too. And they're they're always landing big recruits. So you think about that, and then you look at, wow, he's only won 10 out of his 31 games against a ranked opponent. That's kind of mind-boggling. So let me ask you this one. Who has more pressure Saturday heading into the Big House? Is it the starting quarterback or is it the head coach?
It's a tough question because I think the narrative on James would change drastically based on this game. So that would be one angle, with to say that Franklin has more pressure on him in the sense that he can start to flip that narrative, get the team to 6-0, probably catapult them into a top 5, top 6 with a huge marquee win like this over Michigan. That would do a lot for the James Franklin narrative of inability to beat teams like Michigan or Ohio State on the road, and the inability to beat ranked teams or teams that are ranked ahead of Penn State. It would do a lot for him. But I'll side with Sean Clifford and say that he's got more pressure on him, and that's more because competition is a huge thing in human nature, right? James Franklin doesn't have that competition waiting there behind him. He's got a 10-year, $70 million contract. He's got a lot of support. He's got stability. You could make the claim that Sean Clifford has a lot of stability too, right? I mean, this is his 4th year starting. He's been around the program for 6 years, but there's more pressure on him because what if Penn State falls behind to a 2-touchdown, 3-touchdown deficit, and they're not able to complete shots deep down the field? He's 2 of his last 15 on passes over 15 yards. And all of a sudden the fan base says, we want the freshman quarterback. We want Drew Aller in there. That would be, for me, more reason to have pressure on Sean, or for Sean to have the more pressure, is because he's got a guy waiting in the wings who is capable, has shown that in limited time that he is a talent. And while he is green, that, he's waiting in the wings. He's basically waiting this out and saying, this is Clifford's last year of eligibility. Next year, that's my job. So I would say the pressure is more so on Clifford, because this is a moment where you say, okay, if you were looking at the season back in July or August, you would say Penn State's got a really good shot to go 5-0. Probably your floor is like 4-1. You would think maybe lose Purdue or Auburn. I
Mhm.
suppose you could lose both, but you would kind of pencil it in Central Michigan, Ohio, Northwestern. Those are wins. You're kind of where you're supposed to be. The question with Sean Clifford is, can you take the next step and be more than a 9-3 and 10 or 10-2 type of team, and be on the outside looking in for a college football playoff spot? You could be, but it's dependent on how does Clifford perform, because the rest of the team, the defense, I got to believe they're going to be able to show up. But can Clifford be a difference maker at quarterback? Not just a game manager. It's not a term that's thrown around here a lot for him per se, but with the enhanced running game, he's not being asked to do as much. But in this game, he's going to have to do a little bit more because Michigan's defense and the team in general, they're that good. So I would say there's probably a little bit more pressure on Sean than there is on Franklin.
I'd have to agree with that. And to basically, build upon your point, Sean only has 6 more games to cement his legacy at Penn
Yep.
State. James Franklin has a lot more. Even if they lose out for the rest of the year, he's not getting fired, and eventually he will put it together and they will get in this playoff. Like over the next 10 years, I think that's safe to assume they might make it once. So I mean, but Clifford sure wants it to be this year, and this is with a win, they're definitely, I think, in the first 4 when that poll comes out. So we'll move on to the game itself now, Andrew. What are some keys to look for? What are 3 keys for Penn State to pull off? I didn't even see the betting line. I'm assuming they're an underdog.
Yep.
To pull off the upset here in Ann Arbor and really make a statement on the season.
Well, for them, I mean, the first point I'll go to is one that I kind of alluded to earlier. It's taking vertical shots down the field, and we saw, wide receiver Keandre Lambert-Smith. He was practicing today. He's a guy that Franklin was unsure of during his Tuesday press conference if he was going to be able to go for Michigan. While Lambert-Smith hasn't had the best start to his third year with the team, he is that guy who can take the top off the defense. And without Jahan Dotson, Penn State has kind of struggled to develop that guy. 2 of 15 on his last 15 passes over 15 yards. That's Sean Clifford. That's not good enough. So I would say that's a huge key is, can he, in better weather, assuming that the weather holds up better than it did against Northwestern, where it was a total downpour, and you can chalk that up to not able to grip the football and just not throwing that many passes downfield. But can Penn State take vertical shots downfield? This Michigan secondary, statistically speaking, has been good, but the competition it's faced with UConn, Colorado State, Hawaii, they're not playing Big Ten defenses or Big Ten offenses week in and week out. At least they weren't at the beginning of the season. And then your next couple of opponents were, Maryland, Indiana. It's not quite Penn State or Ohio State in terms of offensive caliber. So can the Nittany Lions take the top off that Michigan defense? That's going to be big, because then that allows for Penn State to do something else that's a huge key to the game, which is, can they run the football? In prior years against Michigan, that has proven impossible. They've not been able to do that. You can go back to 2016 when Penn State had the Big Ten championship winning team. They had Saquon Barkley. They were not able to establish their own, and they got skunked. They lost 49-10 in the Big House. And then you go to 2018, and they got skunked there as well, 42-7. I mean, these are not games that have been particularly close the last few times Penn State's traveled there, save the 2020 COVID season when there were no fans. But other than that, it's kind of been a house of horrors for James Franklin and his team when they make those trips out to Ann Arbor. But establishing the running game is huge. And Penn State has shown that they can run the ball better in recent weeks. But that's not been the case in the prior few years. So that's a huge key for me, is can they actually do that? And then another one would be on the flip side, forcing Michigan into third and long opportunities. Because right now, Michigan's offense has been rolling pretty well. And with a first-year starting quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, who got a little bit of time last year when he spelled Cade McNamara from time to time, this is now his job, but he hasn't really been challenged. Right now, it's been a lot of comfortable passing situations. We're talking 2nd and 2s, 3rd and 2s, where you just got to complete it out in the flat to your tight end or to a running back out of the backfield. But can you force him into 3rd and longs? Because when you do that, he might start to force a few throws. He hasn't made those mistakes yet this year. He's only been sacked 4 times in 5 games as the starting quarterback. So it's been pretty easy going for McCarthy. But if Penn State can stop that running game led by Blake Corum, who so far has been one of the best in the country at running the ball, it really gives their defense a better shot. Obviously, that's easier said than done. But if you can make Michigan's offense a little uncomfortable, because right now they have been on cruise control the first half of the season, haven't faced much adversity. So I think you combine Penn State being able to run the ball, preventing Michigan from being able to run the ball, and can the Nittany Lions actually throw the ball deep downfield, which they haven't done in recent weeks. I think those are all three pretty big keys to the game, because if any of those 1-3 go in Michigan's favor, could be a long afternoon for the Nittany Lions.
I'm excited to watch it. I really am. I mean, it's again bye week for me. I actually have a tea time to do like a top golf thing at PNC Park at 8 a.m. Looking forward to shanking some stuff with my 6-iron, hitting it off the Clemente wall when I'm aiming for center field. That's just how it goes with Noah Hiles on the golf course.
There we go.
But afterward, we'll enjoy some good college football, and that's a great way to kick off the Saturday slate. So I'm looking forward to your coverage. Really looking forward to watching that one. Andrew, we always wrap up the show with a national topic, and we spoke previously about the firing of national coaches at Power 5 programs and how they've just been dropping like flies. I don't think any other Power 5 coaches were fired this week. However, I do kind of want to do something more with this topic based upon another coach that lost his job, Matt Rule, here in the city that I'm currently talking to you from, Charlotte, North Carolina. I've had at least 2 Uber drivers bring it up to me. They didn't even know my profession or anything. They're just like, how about Matt Rule getting canned? I'm like, yeah, man, stinks. Like, I don't know what else to say. Not great.
Right.
So I wanted to ask, if you're a Power 5 program, and don't take in the specifics of, a Nebraska or a Colorado or a Wisconsin or a Georgia Tech. We're saying you have a huge budget, and your goal is to be in the college football playoff in 5 years, right? Rank these 3 candidates in order of how much of priority to hire from 1 to 3, 1 being the highest guy you want. The 3 names that I'm going to give off alphabetically based upon first name: Deion Sanders, Matt Rule, Urban Meyer. Who are your 3 and what order?
I'll say Matt Rule at the top, Deion
Wow.
Sanders. Yeah, I'm big on the Rule train, and that's probably a little bit biased because I'm based out here in central Pennsylvania. It seems everybody wants to bring up Matt Rule's name whenever they're upset with James Franklin. But I got to give credit where it's due. He did a great job at Temple, turning that program around from 2 wins to 10 wins in 3 years. And then at Baylor, they went from 1 win to 10 wins. So I didn't really think the hire for Carolina made that much sense in the first place. I always thought he was a college coach,
I did too.
So for me, that's why I say Rule's at the top, because great resume at the college level. And then number 2, I'm going Deion Sanders, and then Urban Meyer at 3. And Meyer, if we were going based strictly on performance and what they've done at the college level, you'd put Meyer at number 1. For me, though, if you're a public university, and just given the way things went down in Jacksonville with Meyer, I don't know in terms of hireability if Urban's the guy that you can really roll with and vet and all those sorts of things. But it's definitely a question that you have to ask about Deion too, with the academy that he had. That's definitely been something that's been a question mark for a lot of programs that have looked into hiring Sanders, is why that kind of didn't work out for him when he tried to get involved in the high school sports and high school footprint. So I'll give Deion the slight benefit, also just because of the job he's doing at Jackson State and the fact that he is coaching. I think that matters.
Mm-hmm.
So Urban, by all means, I think he would succeed pretty much anywhere he goes. He's done that aside from at the NFL ranks. And I think you can kind of make that same argument with Rule. And Rule doesn't come with the same baggage. He's a young guy, too. I don't even think he's 50 years old. And, he's done it well in different spots in the country. He's been able to recruit well, but not excellent. So it's not that he's dependent on his talent. He's able to develop guys. He's got that offensive background, but also has been able to turn around some offenses, both at Baylor as well as at Temple. So I'll go Rule 1, Deion 2, and we'll put Urban at number 3. How about you? What you got, Noah?
Andrew, who is it that pays for these coaches' salaries when you bring in a big name? It's the boosters, right?
Yep.
It's the boosters who have the big money to sign these checks to bring these guys in. I'm going to venture to say the boosters don't give a damn what Urban Meyer did in a bar after a Thursday night football loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't think they care at all.
Yeah.
And if I am looking to get my team into the college football playoff, be it 4 teams or 8 teams or however many, Urban Meyer is the best way to get there. There's just no denying it. There are programs that have a very good coach right now that if they knew they could get Urban Meyer, I have no doubt in my mind they would part ways with whoever. They would get a booster to sign the check, get him out of town. Thank you for your service. We just secured a spot in the college football playoff by the time this freshman class are seniors. That's how they would look at it. And if you look, and I know I said don't go specifically off of programs' needs right now, but like you take Nebraska, like you look at just how much football means to a place like that. These programs in the Big Ten and the SEC in these towns where there's no other pro sports. This is the state's obsession. They are not going to care. They're going to defend him. I saw it in Ohio. When people were mad at him for other things, there were people, having rallies supporting Urban Meyer. And it'll happen again. I'm not saying I agree with anything morally that Urban Meyer stands for or has been connected with. I don't agree with it at all. But if we're looking strictly upon win, I'm going Urban 1. Deion Sanders, I still put at number 2. I just think that with NIL and the transfer portal, you have a huge advantage in having a coach who can relate to players and who can recruit well. And you throw Deion Sanders in a program that has great top tier facilities, and basically everything that Jackson State doesn't have. I mean, he went there where all they really had was Deion, and he had to get the facilities to what they are now. He had to get the attention and exposure to what they are now. And you look at what they're doing. I mean, they're not, in the national conversation as far as competitiveness goes, but they're in the news cycle, whether you like it or not. And they're relevant he has a seat at the table. You put him somewhere where they are playing ranked opponents in their conference schedule, where they have these facilities. That could be something great. Now, I guess the counterpoint would be, how much of Deion are you really getting? Because he still has like shows with Barstool Sports. He still is doing a million commercials. Is he going to be as committed as an Urban Meyer or a Matt Rule? I don't know. I haven't covered the guy. I don't know well enough. I just know, all I know is he's had one head coaching job and he's made it a relevant program. But if you're already a relevant program, maybe you don't need relevancy. The Matt Rule thing, I think you made a lot of great points. I think he is probably the smoothest hire out of these 3 guys. You don't have to worry about him getting in trouble or his assistants getting in trouble like we've seen with, Urban throughout the years. And Deion, I don't think he's going to get in trouble. But, when you bring in a charismatic guy like Deion, there's just extra cameras and attention that some programs might not like. Matt Rule is going to keep it real simple. I think he is a good coach. I think you couldn't really go wrong with, I guess you could go wrong with the Urban Meyer hire, but you could do a lot worse than any of the 3. I expect all 3, honestly, at least 2 of them to be coaching at a Power 5 school next year. I wouldn't be shocked to see I would be a little shocked, I guess, if Deion left Jackson State, especially just because his kids are there right now. But the other 2, I think it would make a ton of sense to bring both in to a Power 5 school. I think you make your program 10 times better. Andrew, that concludes another show. You have any final thoughts?
Looking forward to getting out there to Ann Arbor. It's going to be a heck of a time out there for sure. And I guess we'll see. Is James Franklin going to get a little bit closer to 500? He's still got a ways to go with those matchups against AP top 25 teams. But we'll know. I'll say this. It's a shame the game's at noon. It's would have loved to see that be a nighttime primetime game. But
dude,
so goes
what are you talking about? You're a sports writer. You should be thanking the gods. I already have another 8 p.m. kickoff at Louisville next weekend. So no, don't be saying that. Just take your blessings. Go watch your top 10 matchup and be done with work at 4:30 p.m. I'm done with this. Thank you for everyone who tuned in. As always, follow us on our social media platforms and be sure to continue to check out our work on this YouTube channel by subscribing, and check our work out at the Post-Gazette's website. We'll see you again next week.